Hello everyone, welcome to another video lecture on teaching profession. So last time we dealt on concepts with regard to teaching, the definitions of teaching, and of course the 5 metaphors of teaching. Those, as was discussed with you, pertain to teaching per se. But this time we're going to zero in to profession because if you may have noticed, the nomenclature of your course title is the teaching profession. So it is then right to chunk the two in order to give light on what each of the concepts would mean, and in order to eventually bring to you out what teaching profession is by itself. All right. So putting together or gluing together the concepts discussed, the other video lecture plus this lecture today will give you a clearer viewpoint on what teaching profession is by nature, what teaching profession is by laws guiding it, what teaching profession is given all the considerations that we already had discussed about, plus this discussion in today's video lecture. Okay, so basically we've got to look into how profession is being defined, and we have here our dear friend John Goodland. So Jan Goodland puts profession as an occupation that would usually require, a process, and this process usually also undergoes advanced trainings, advanced involvement in order for intellectual skills, intellectual talents to be honed accordingly. And usually, when someone ends to becoming a professional, that would mean that this person upholds something that is right, something that is lawful. And usually, all these actions and all the thoughts and provisions that a certain individual would envision, okay, is guided by code of ethics. Because every professional, for that matter, has a ruling principle, and usually these ruling principles revolve around what is inscribed in their code of ethics. Like for us, for professional teachers, we too have our code of ethics, all right, for professional teachers. Like with other professionals, they too have their own according and respective of their profession, all right? So, it's not just about having gone through or going through the advancement when it comes to skills and talents, but we also have to, as professionals, uphold to certain principles and even guiding rules in order for us to maintain our dignity in the profession. Because being professional would mean that we just don't practice, all right? We just don't practice what we have, the talents, our abilities. We just don't put them to practice, but we also carry along ourselves and along our personality the sense of credibility and integrity. And these incense would only be maintained if we really uphold to our code of ethics, all right? And as for code of ethics, we shall soon, all right, as we go along our course, we shall soon know what all these principles and what all these rules are about the teaching profession, okay? Now, there are different characteristics of a professional as accordingly, and one of the basic thing required from a professional is commitment. Commitment is being engaged by your faithfulness and your loyalty to your organization or to your profession, even if the salary or there are other necessities around you that don't seem to be very pleasing, that seem to be frustrating at times. Perhaps the environment, the attitude of the bosses, or salary in itself. There are frustrating variables that would make a professional sometimes frown or sometimes be discouraged to keep going. But commitment is something that is being looked up to for a professional. This is one characteristic emphasized here in the book of Dr. Tamayo. And this is also coupled with your service ethics, like what ethical standards do you do you practice whenever you do your profession? Because whether we like it or not, like I have said a while ago, usually our ability to practice our profession and to translate our knowledge into skills or into application is supposed to be given because we've gone through a certain period of time to prepare for such. But it is as well important to carry ourselves along with ethical standards. So this is what commitment is telling to us as a characteristic of a professional. All right, and it's very important. Now we shall be breaking into four, okay, major. I don't know if it's four. I don't know if my memory serves me right, but yeah, there are four characteristics of a professional. First is self-autonomy. What do we mean when a professional has self-autonomy? All right. This means that any professional is entitled to conduct himself rightfully and accordingly because it is assumed that this person knows what he is exactly doing. Why? Because when he or she took oath of the profession he is about to enter, there are orientations, there are reminders, and there are even principles and laws being presented to them to abide and to commit into as they took oath. Yeah. You know, the raising of the hand would usually not just mean that you are already eligible to get your card and to say you are licensed or you are already a professional in a certain field, but it also would remind someone as he or she raises his hand that he is committing himself to a practice wherein by hook or by crook, he has to go as accordingly. Otherwise, the license or even his being professional might be taken away from here or from her. Okay? So that's what self-autonomy is. We regard professionals as people who know exactly how to conduct themselves. Therefore, what is imperative if that's the case? It is imperative, therefore, that every professional is given the right and the freedom on their profession. All right? And the dilemma there is, if all professionals are given the right and the freedom, there should be this controlling factor. What do I mean? Of course, if you are given the respect, the right, the full authority, and even the freedom to conduct yourself as according to your profession, then you should not go beyond or you should not exceed the boundaries. Otherwise, you might end up missing your chances of continuing your profession. Otherwise, you might end up being removed from your profession. That is what the implications of self-autonomy is. But we have to remember that our right, okay, and our freedom to conduct our profession is what we call self-autonomy. And that's one of the characteristics of a professional, all right? Next, number 2, we also have highly developed, let me write that, highly developed theoretical or specialized knowledge. So accordingly, we call a professional to have this. Someone who is highly developed with theoretical or specialized knowledge. How is this happening? Or how is this possible? Of course, before you become a professional, you have to go through a period of time to involve yourself with academic or experiential learnings, all right? And for a professional to continue having this highly developed theoretical or specialized knowledge, it does not just end during that interval, all right? During that time when he or she has to enroll a certain course, but it is continuing. That is why, if you may have heard of this, the Professional Regulation Commission would usually require, okay, not just teachers, but even other professionals of CPD certificates now when they update their licenses. What is this for? Because it is believed in characteristic number 2 that a professional has to have, right, a highly developed. It doesn't mean ending right after graduation or right after passing the board examination, but it has to be continuing. It's a process, all right? That is why the purpose of CPDs, or continuing professional development, all right? And it's not just by, getting certificates, but even you pursuing further education after your BS degree would also mean to this characteristic. Therefore, updating, all right? Updating is important. You can do short courses, you can enroll short course programs, or you can enroll diploma programs. There are such things offered in the Commission on Higher Education, or even in the Department of Education, or any agencies for that matter, to subscribe to characteristic number 2. All right. Now we proceed with control of training, certification, and licensing of new entrants. So let me write that. What do we have here? Before you become a professional, you really have to go through certain trainings. I don't know if you're aware of this, but in DepEd, sometimes one of the requirements for new entrants is to have undergone trainings. Like they would go to computer offering institutions, and they would have like 60 hours of involvement, sort of that. So that's an example, because it is important for new entry professionals, or new entrants like they call it, to also have other areas they are capable of doing, so that in the event that a certain institution needs someone to man, all right, or someone to be in charge of ICTs, there would be someone they would call or consider. And that is just one of the many other trainings that new entrants are expected to undergo before they can practice their profession. That's why if you also have noticed, for education professionals being readied, you always have to undergo your practice teaching. Why? How important is practice teaching? This in itself prepares you to becoming a professional teacher. Because months or even year after you have involved yourself to practice teaching, you already are being equipped of what reality is inside the classroom, other than the theoretical standards or theoretical concepts being taught to you. Because, if you have undergone trainings or even practice teaching specifically for your course or for your bachelor's degree, then that would at least have readied you, or will ready you to the profession you are taking in few years' time. Okay? So it's important. Normally, it's really normal that for every aspiring profession, there has to be other trainings or certifications or even licensing before they could practice their profession. And that for you is the BLEPT, or the Board Licensure Examination for Professional Teachers, okay? And you might as well consider already practice teaching as a pre-requirement before you can go for your major license on the BLEPT, all right? And the fourth characteristic is, professionals are considered to be self-governing, all right? But it doesn't mean that being self-governed is by being all alone or by knowing it yourself all alone, okay? It does not mean that way. Instead, you should remember that every professional subjects himself or herself to a certain institution, all right? Or to a certain governing body. Let's say, for example, we in the state university, the teachers there are being governed by the Commission on Higher Education, while for high school teachers, for elementary teachers, they are with the Department of Education. So we call these entities as governing bodies. And usually, these governing bodies are partitioned or grouped by the government because the government believes that these certain entities would have their own policies or would have their own management system, and the government respects that. The reason why professionals are called to be self-governing, especially when it comes to professional ethics. So, like I have said, the government has in no way interference, all right, on self-governing institutions. There are, of course, some projects or plans or funding that they can offer, but the management system just comes from the top management of a certain institution. That's why it's called to be self-governing. So professionals, therefore, who are under such a governing institution or an entity are also considered self-governing bodies, all right? When it comes to professional ethics. So these are the 4 characteristics of a professional. First, we have self-autonomy. The second is someone who has highly developed theoretical or specialized knowledge. Third is someone who has control of training, certificate, and licensing, all right? And of course, the last one is self-governing or self-policing authority, especially on matters concerning professional ethics, all right? So those are the 4. Please don't forget them. Now we're moving into proofs, okay, that teaching is a profession in the Philippines. So how can we say that someone is a professional in teaching, okay, in the context of the Philippines, of course, because other countries have their standards that are according to their laws, principles rather, and their governing institutions. So basically, the very first requirement is, number 1, teaching is considered a profession in the Philippines because of the presence of board licensure examination for professional teachers, or like what I have said, the BLEP. It used to be just LET, licensure examination for teachers, but the updating would tell us that the nomenclature or the name is now BLEP, all right, or board licensure examination for professional teachers. And another is teachers in the Philippines have to have accredited professional organization participation. So there are different organizations for that matter that teachers can involve themselves, all right? So that's number 2. And then third is, again, the CPD, or the Continuing Professional Development. You know, for your course or for your profession, you can enroll your master's right after graduation, or even at the time you're most comfortable with, and then you can go for a PhD degree, and it doesn't end there. You can still go for licensing, especially in your course, which has a lot of expert fields. You can go for licensing in a certain sport, you can go for licensing in dance, and so on and so forth. And I know you guys are aware of that. And number 4, of course, this should not be out of the box. Code of ethics. Teaching as a profession in the Philippines is profession because there is also the code of ethics, okay? You will know its specific sooner or later as we go through. So there you have it. And now we move on to some other factors or concepts about teaching as a profession. If you may have heard or noticed the 3 C's I have mentioned last video lecture, I told in there that sometimes becoming a teacher could be by choice, by chance, or by call. But in this book, I need not to discuss that again in detail, because in this book, there are also presentations of some luring factors, or how do you call this? Reasons why people consider becoming teachers, all right? So number one in this resource material is that our influence to learners. You know, this is true. Wherever you go, if you're a teacher, you will always be called ma'am, even then when you retire. And having 50 people in a class would mean as if you are molding or as if you are influencing 50 people because you are the authority in that class. And people would always consider this as something satisfactorily or as something fulfilling. That's why they consider teaching to be their profession. I don't know for what reason you have. And another is job security. Okay. Well, for the Philippine setting, there are a lot of public schools, okay? Even private schools are also thriving in our country. And whether we like it or not, even without you having your board licensure examination for professional teachers yet, one can actually end up teaching already because of these private institutions. And this is why the salary may be minimal, but still teaching is considered to have job security somehow because of the presence of many institutions or many academic institutions in the country. All right. And next is wider job opportunities offered. This is a sad reality. Not everybody who gets BS in education ends up teaching. All right. Wider job opportunities would tell teachers can become any other professionals after they finish their degree. Most end up becoming fire officers. Others are into the uniformed personnel. They become police. They become soldiers, and so on and so forth. That is why if you graduate as teachers soon, we might not as well expect that everybody of you end up teaching or end up becoming teachers. Others of you might have been fated to go for other professions. So that is one of the luring factors or benefits looked up to in teaching. Okay, it's no problem. It's no wrong to consider teaching as your stepping stone for other professions. But for those who really have the heart to pursue teaching as a profession, then you'll find it fulfilling more than any other professions, so long as it is after your heart. Okay. Next is diversity of activities. It's true. Being a teacher would not just confine you to the four walls of the classroom. It can also bring you to other opportunities, especially if you are this teacher who is also involved with other co-curricular or extracurricular connections or engagements in your institution. It can bring you to places. It can bring you to events. That's how diverse the activities are. Or even then, when you don't get out of the province or the school, there are still activities inside the classroom or inside the institution that would involve many teachers to many activities. All right, intramurals, there are other student-teacher activities. All right, sort of these things. Okay, so that's it. And the long holidays, yeah. Not all professionals enjoy these long holidays, but for us teachers, we have wide array of markings in the calendar that would let us enjoy all these holidays, all right? And of course, shorter hours of work. You know, when you shall soon be studying about the Magna Carta for public school teachers, you will see there that there is only this 6-hour time requirement, all right, for teachers to render teaching, all right? And, you know, for other professionals, they would usually end up on a 24/7 duty, or others would even go beyond, all right, this time requirement that we in the teaching have. Minsan lang, maraming nagre-reklamo na parang they stay quite a long in school, all right? But yeah, because other schools would require DepEd teachers to report from 7 to 5 or 8 to 5. But the real time is, there is only this 6-hour time requirement as prescribed in the Magna Carta for public school teachers. So that's it. We really have the shortest time of involvement in our teaching profession. Okay? And of course, other than this, there are also hallmarks or like other factors to really persuade someone to consider teaching as a profession. And as soon as you go through your material, your resource material or your reading material, you'll get to know them personally too, okay? And of course, other than the hallmarks or other than the threshold that can persuade or lure someone to consider teaching, there are also frustrating reasons or realities that would make someone say no to teaching, or that would make someone not consider even teaching. All right. One of these is the very known reality, which is low payment. We just hope that during your generation in the teaching profession already, by then, we hope that our, how do you call this? Our senators would have considered, our lawmakers would have considered the pay hike, especially for deaf ed teachers. Because in state universities, there is a more friendly and a more, for more fulfilling way of being promoted because of the system of promotion. And we hope too that by then, for deaf ed teachers, it shall also be considered. Because for whatever field you are teaching, be it in the elementary, the high school, or college, we have to regard teaching as something really way beyond other professions, because our role is actually not just to share knowledge but to even mold people to become better than they're being right now or even in the past. That is our role, and it takes really a lot of passion, a lot of heart to do that. Not everybody is gifted with that, but you being called soon in this profession would just give you that fulfillment, no matter how meager your payment is. Okay, so that's one of the frustrating factors or the undermining factors. Right now, there's also a problem with the behavior of students, and that's one of the underscored factor in here. Some teachers, or there have already been cases when teachers are being bullied, all right? Because there are students who are assuming to be of higher authority, of higher knowledge, of higher wisdom than their teachers. And some teachers are being called or even being put to challenge because of the presence of these kinds of learners. And that's one of the reasons why others would consider or would undermine teaching, all right? And there are, of course, a lot else. And this one, especially now that during the pandemic, there have been shifts on the delivery of learning, on submissions to, authorities with regard to paperwork. And so these all boil down to stress. And many teachers have already experienced this. Stress is one of the undermining factors specified in here. And if we go back to the hallmarks or to the benefits of being a teacher, one of there is the diversity of activities, right? And now, it is also one of the undermining factors for teaching profession to have multiple responsibilities. But this might be pertaining to cases like teachers, especially when we shifted to the K-12 program. Teachers who are not even experts on a certain field were given loads to teach such kind of such field or such subject matters. And this really caused some teachers to say no, or to even frown at their responsibilities. Well, it's understood. You can't give what you do not have, but they had no choice because there were lack of teachers who would cater to such subject matter during that time. But I think that problem was eventually or was gradually being settled or being given attention to. That's why the the entry or the hiring of teachers during the coming years. Okay, so that's it. In this lesson, you have looked into factors that people consider to end up in the teaching profession, or reasons even for them to not consider teaching as a profession. But for you guys, I hope that you have seen better what your purpose is, why you have come to this point as far as you are in your second or third year now. Okay, and I hope too that this lesson as being delivered to you would prepare you better on your becoming a teacher or becoming some other professionals in the future. It's not yet even late, it's not yet even too advanced, but whether it's a choice, a chance, or a calling, then I hope that you have a way through this lesson of figuring out your purpose in the teaching course or in MAPE as your field. Okay, so that's it. I hope that you were given the light, not just about profession in the teaching, but even teaching per se, as in the last video lecture. So that's all. Thank you so much for listening, and have a happy note taking. Goodbye.